And if I can be brutally honest here, I really think that there's really little value, or like the real value is kind of lost when big businesses go ahead and acquire the startups early on and then kill the innovation.
Welcome from PwC. This is Up Next for Your Private Business, the video podcast series that brings together professionals from around Europe, Middle East, and Africa to uncover how private business leaders, government, and policymakers can work together to build an enabling environment for private businesses to flourish and grow. My name is Peter English, Global Family Business and EMEA Entrepreneurial and Private Business Leader, partner in PwC Germany. Today, we're exploring the importance of the startup ecosystem. According to PwC recently published Private Business Attractiveness Index, a vibrant ecosystem of talented and creative people sit at the foundation of an attractive environment for private businesses. But what goes into building such a thriving startup ecosystem? And how can businesses, investors, accelerators, and startup work successfully together? To answer those questions and more, I have the pleasure to talking with Funda Sezgi, co-CEO at Norrsken, based in Sweden. Before assuming her current role, Funda co-founded Norrsken Impact Accelerator, the world's leading accelerator for impact startups. Welcome, Funda.
Hi, Peter. Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So let's talk about the connection between businesses and the startup ecosystem. In our recently published study, we noticed that one of the most important factors for determining a country's business attractiveness is the presence of a vibrant startup ecosystem. Funda, why do you think startups are so important to the business environment as a whole?
So I'll take this from the perspective of creating a positive impact. And like, if we can really start imagining a world, a future, I really think that we need to set the ambition levels super, super high. And we really need to start thinking of building a world that is environmentally sustainable and socially and financially inclusive. And I do think that it takes a village to create the types of systemic changes that we need to see. And that's why I think the startups are an extremely crucial part of the whole picture. And if I can take a couple of steps back, Peter, I think, the challenges that our society is facing today are so complex. We think about climate change, we think about mental health, misinformation, like these problems do not recognize any borders, and they're scaling at such a fast pace that the solutions are not really keeping up. And in order to be able to match the challenges that we're facing, I think we do need to really find ways to innovate fast and then find ways to bring them to a massive scale. And at Norrsken, that's what we try to do. We really believe in the power of entrepreneurship and technology as positive forces for change. And that's why we created this ecosystem where we're enabling entrepreneurs that are then hopefully growing so much faster. And if I may add, jointly, our ecosystem is now, we're managing over $500 million and supporting entrepreneurs through our funds, accelerators, and entrepreneurial hubs. And jointly, we've supported over 1,000 startups in our ecosystem. But that said, again, we're just a tiny drop in the ocean. It's like the complexity that we're facing is so huge that it requires collective efforts. And I think that's really why both of these actors need to play their parts. The startups being the agile actors that can innovate fast, and then the big businesses that are there that can actually really take these solutions to the scale that we really need to see.
So if I'm getting you right, you are saying so innovation facing and addressing important issues for society, environment, and the planet is better placed in a vibrant startup scale-up ecosystem. So and would really tend to agree to that statement, because what we see also is that many businesses, including many private businesses, can better innovate outside the day-to-day business. And this is why the connection, and there's an interest, of course, in matching, meeting, or even investing into new ideas. So whether it's ESG related or technology related, we see that quite often. So, but what is, in your opinion or experience, the best way how they can collaborate? Where's the best way that innovators and traditional business owners can meet? How can they find each other and support each other? So what is your experience after so many years?
Yeah, I mean, we work with large businesses and corporate partners a lot, and I think like there is a huge benefit in bringing those actors together, right? And I think like some of the best examples I have seen are where the large businesses are investing in the startups and using their muscles to actually help them like to reach the scale that we need to see. So invest and then put a giant spotlight on these startups so they can break through the noise, and then really bringing them to their operational world. So the businesses are actually developing their ways of working through the startups' innovative practices. And if I can be brutally honest here, I really think that there's really little value, or like the real value is kind of lost when big businesses go ahead and acquire the startups early on and then kill the innovation. Because to your point, Peter, I think there is great value in keeping this outside of the corporate structure, but then, trying to figure out how do we blend this into our operations and organization down the line, rather than, blocking the progress there. And we love working with businesses that really see these solutions as opportunities rather than threats. And because we think that if these startups win, we all win. So I think we just need to let them live their life and then stay innovative.
Why do you think then this has such a positive impact on the overall attractiveness of a country if such an ecosystem exists? So by what you are saying is, so yes, investments are needed. Also the support, mutual support is needed, but just to a certain extent, that innovation is not going to be killed in a way. But nevertheless, there is obviously a mutual interest in each other, right?
Yeah.
And how to find the right balance of benefiting as a corporate or even or as a private business from the inspiration, from the new technology, from the new thinking of startups and scale-up entrepreneurs, bringing them down in terms of their passion. Let's put it that way. So what have you seen as a good practice? And obviously, you started in Sweden, and Sweden is also ranked pretty high when it comes to attractiveness for startup and scale-up. So what do you think makes Sweden so attractive, and is there a winning formula, so to say, that also government and other stakeholders in the ecosystem can learn from?
Yeah, I mean, like some of the great examples are really where like there are aligned agendas in terms of like where the business is trying to grow, and then there's a startup that is basically tackling one part of that solution that the big business does not have the initial interest, at least, in developing. And then like I've seen startups developing plans together with large businesses. Like they would not be able to bring their solution to that kind of scale if like they don't have these plans, and then they don't have the initial muscles to be able to get there. So like some of them work very well in terms of strategic partnerships as such, and then some of the solutions are really like where the corporates go in and then say, okay, we will invest in like these funds or startups to be able to take them to the next level, to see if at some point we can incorporate these solutions in our business practices. So I think like there's really great wins for both sides in keeping that structure. And when it comes to Sweden in particular, it's a country that has been an innovation pioneer like all this time, right? And if we think about like unicorns per capita, I'm sure it's not the first time you're hearing this, but it's like Stockholm is basically one of the best in the world. I guess the second one after Silicon Valley when it comes to the number of unicorns per capita. that this country city has produced. So we're talking about Klarnas, Spotify's, like iZettle's, Skype's. So these are great examples, and I don't think it's a coincidence that there's so much new ideas coming out of this country. And I do think that there's a lot of historical reasons for this as well. That's the fact that this country was one of the first to adapt digitalization. So there is that. But if we can look at what is happening more contemporarily, is that I think one of the most crucial factors is that those companies that have succeeded previously, the founders of those are now engaging their capital, their knowledge and network in helping build the next generation entrepreneurs. So the ecosystem really starts with these like success cases who are both then role models for the up and coming ones. Like Skype being like one of the first global companies, like tech companies coming out of Sweden, was an inspiration to the Klarnas and the later ones. And then they're now the ones that are supporting the next generation entrepreneurs. So I think this paying forward culture is something unique about this ecosystem. But if I can, go.
Yeah, so with the culture, I think I love what you're saying, and as we have the pleasure of having you here, and Norrsken has already moved into different countries with a different cultural background, with a different history, I would be really interested to learn what the difference is. And for our listeners and watchers here, maybe just as an information, you moved already to Africa, Kigali in
Right.
Rwanda, with
Right.
another Norrsken house, with another incubator, and you recently also opened one in Barcelona in Spain. So if you compare Sweden and the business or the conditions for startups in the various countries, what are the main differences?
So, I mean, there is these three ecosystems are quite different in terms of their maturity, I would say. And I think Sweden is really, I think it's the best time and place to be a tech entrepreneur, honestly. It's really you can access knowledge, capital, networks. It's basically just get out in the streets and you'll bump into unicorn founders. And I think this is a unique situation here. But I also see that this Stockholm city itself has put the ambition that they now want to be the impact capital of the world, not just the best tech startup ecosystem. So I think
you're referring to the Norrsken Impact Week, I guess, right? So
no,
which has
not
become
just
very,
that.
very
Yeah.
important.
Really, not just that. I think we're one of the catalyzers, but there is really commitment from the city to actually put a thing on the universe in terms of impact. So what I see here is that when the ecosystem matures in this way, then the next level question comes as to, okay, how do we then be the best ecosystem for the world, not just in the world?
But what I hear is also that you're saying so that that the government and policymakers can do something to support the existence and the growth of this ecosystem, right? So just allowing for this to happen, setting, enabling, supporting environment, which is maybe less tax or driven or more cost driven, more infrastructure driven, more availability of inspired people with a good education driven. So is this what you're saying? Because this is something that could be transferred as a message also to other territories, other countries, and say, if you want to have a vibrant ecosystem, what you need to do? So what would be your answer if you have the possibility to talk to a government representative who is asking you, what shall I do to support a similar vibrant ecosystem that you found in Sweden? What is it what they need to do?
I mean, the biggest needs for the startups to succeed tend to revolve around access to capital, access to talent, and then a huge spotlight on them, right? And I think the policies, government, cities, they can play a critical role in facilitating these connections for starters, and then enabling actors like Norrsken and the other ones that are building the ecosystems. So I think that is one of the things that I see is happening in Sweden a lot. And I'm going to throw in one data point that I have from we gathered from Deal Room, that it's accordingly in Sweden now, there's 35 times more impact startups per capita in comparison to the rest of the world. I mean, that is huge. And I don't think this is a coincidence. I mean, this requires some discipline as to how do we bring like different actors together and then enable the startup ecosystem. I'm not going to touch upon all the regulations and whatnots. Obviously, I mean, like talent being able to move here, etc. I think there's a lot that still needs to be done here as well. But there are enablers for sure in this ecosystem.
You were talking about investors. So what we observe is that there is a huge interest of private business owners and family office, which means private family capital to invest in the ecosystem.
Right.
And is this something that you also see that more private and institutional investors are supporting and investing into the ecosystem?
Absolutely. And I think if I can make a distinction between Barcelona and Stockholm, for instance, I mean, there's a huge potential in the Spanish market. I mean, great ideas, great entrepreneurs, but historically they have been lacking access to risk capital. And it's, old capital, not taking the risk means that, it's basically great solutions that are looking for capital outside of Spain, which is what we would like to change there, because we see great opportunities that like anyone can tap into early on. But we just need to trigger the risk capital there. And that goes to family offices and private businesses and all of that. I mean, this is like where the needle really starts moving. Absolutely. And in the same way, like Kigali is definitely a more nascent ecosystem in that sense. But again, like so many great solutions that we have already come across, that's mind blowing. So like, how do we make sure that we bring the attention of the ones that dare to take the risk already to that geography?
If we talk about impact investing or impact making entrepreneurs, so there is in some heads the idea of small businesses fixing a certain very narrow solution so that it's very hard to scale, to bring it to an economic scale. So how are you dealing with that? What is your solution, and how important is technology in the business cases that you are going to support?
Yeah, so when we invest in startups, what we first look at is the impact potential of that business and whether impact is actually baked into the business. So not a just side hustle, but actually the core of the business is about bringing impact to the world. And then we think that if we actually help scale the business, then the impact of it proportionally scales, or even better, exponentially with the business. So this is basically one of the key things that we look at, and scalability is utmost key. That's why at Norrsken we think that entrepreneurship and the combination of that with technology are the two critical factors that we need to incorporate into the businesses that we see.
This is fantastic feedback from your end. Funda, last question to you. So let's focus on women founders and entrepreneurs. So as we see for many years, the numbers could be much better. And how can we encourage more female founders to start a business to make a real impact? And what are, based on your experience, some obstacles that they currently face?
Yeah, I think, it is absolutely a challenge to solve. And like, I'm sad to say that Sweden is still one of those that is lagging behind in terms of female founders and the money that goes to female founders. I mean, in our world, when we're, for instance, running our Impact Accelerator, we really make a conscious attempt, an effort into inviting female founders to apply. So it's like it all goes back to how you build your processes, right? If you say that we couldn't find any female founders, that means that you're not really looking at where you need to look at. So if there's such a goal as a company, then you will actually get to that KPI. So what we do is we always reach out to the female group, like founder groups, and try to identify the best ones that we can support. And I think it goes back to the money, right? I mean, money draws than the solutions. So I think we just need to make sure that the capital actually has the discipline to look for the founders out there. But that said, I really, really want to encourage any female founder or want to be a founder here listening to this podcast that it's really not like there has never been a better time to be a female founder. Like everyone says, at least it says that they are looking for these great female founders. So just get out there and make yourself visible, and there is money for your ventures. So please just go ahead and dare and knock on the doors. If you're getting a no, you're talking to the wrong audiences. So just find the right ones.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Funda. And you are such a great inspirational example with power and passion for what you do. This is just phenomenal. And to conclude, I think it's important, and you were able to showcase why it's important that for the overall attractiveness of a country, this dialogue between disruptive, innovative entrepreneurs trying to fix important problems and established businesses is important, right, and mutual benefit. That private capital is super important to get things done. It's like a catalyst for ideas, and this is also for mutual benefit. It's not just for altruistic purposes. It has a real business case, and I think this is different from classic philanthropy in the past. So I think what you have pioneered and what you are going to continue to do also in Africa and in Spain now is fantastic, and we wish you all the best of success and Norrsken in the future.
Thank you. If I may add one thing, I mean, just along the same lines with what you just said, Peter, I mean, the world's greatest challenges are also the world's greatest opportunities. So we really, like, what people see as, oof, like this is outside of my world, I think it's exactly where you will find the interesting opportunities. So highly encouraged to take a deep dive.
Thank you so much, Funda, for joining the podcast. I'm sure our audience found the discussion as insightful as I did. To everyone watching or listening to the podcast today, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast series. We will release an episode each month, and I hope to see you then. Goodbye.